And welcome back,
folks, to rejoin us.
And welcome back, Carolina Weather
audio
Group.
back,
James
Jared?
Brierton,
I'm getting Jared Smith. We got our.
Oh, weird.
No, not you. It was me. We're good. So we got the Facebook group rejoining us right now at about 5:50 p.m. Eastern Time here on October the 8th. It is Sunday. We are watching Tropical Depression Nate. Just like we talked about in the forecast, the possibility
Facebook
for
group
some of those
rejoining us right now at about 5:50
tornadoes. And Jared and I were just talking as we were doing the handoff, really kind of getting a decent amount of activity here on this Sunday, Jared.
Yeah, it's been a little busy. You know, you can never underestimate the power of the right front quadrant of a landfalling tropical system, to put it mildly. Been a little nuts. We've had several tornado touchdowns, some very impressive debris signatures for this part of the world, some debris balls that, quite frankly, have their place in the plains and not in South Carolina. So let's just jump back into it. So we have 2 active tornado warnings and now a new severe thunderstorm warning in Polk County. And I got to tell you, James, I mean, this is this is on the verge. This is producing some wind damage, but I wouldn't be shocked to see that they had a little debris get lofted in this one as well. Just to quickly comment on the shape of these have been pretty decent supercells. It's got that little flying eagle look, good venting aloft. Just past north of 26 around Columbus. So this is going to head towards Lake Lure and Bat Cave. But this is just a severe thunderstorm warning, not just, just a severe thunderstorm warning, and still get plenty of damage out of those. Reports of tree damage there. So again, this is this severe thunderstorm is crossing north of Columbus. We were hinting at this one earlier. It looked like it wanted to try and cycle up, maybe a quick spin up, but so far no sign of that. Looking at the velocity here, not too bad, but still some very strong and gusty winds, and you should be taking cover as if a tornado could be approaching. In Lake Lure, this is going to cross US 64 around Lake Lure and Bat Cave in the next 15-20 minutes. This is all moving north around 30 miles an hour. So we'll need to watch that closely. We've had several reports of severe weather from potentially from tornadoes that have gone through Lawrence and in Pickens. Those will be surveyed by the National Weather Service in Greenville, Spartanburg, to figure out the extent of that damage. But there's been a lot of damage reports out of there. So some impressive debris signatures today. And right now, we still have 2 tornado warnings on the board. I'm going to start in Union County, South Carolina, very near Jonesville, where we have still some circulation trying to cross. This is not as good of a radar presentation as we had seen previously, but this is getting very close to Jonesville. We'll look at the correlation coefficient product. Looks pretty clean right now, so that's a good sign, but still some very heavy rain, gusty winds, as this storm had produced a tornado. For good long ways. This is may have produced something north of Clinton, may have produced something north of Cross Keys, east of Buffalo, and now in Jonesville seems to have cycled down again. We'll wait to see how it goes as we get in Cherokee County. But this warning is going to go until 6 p.m. And so we got another 6 minutes on this tornado warning. So far, I've seen nothing else issued to the north of it. Could see a severe thunderstorm warning issued to the north. Especially since there is some wind damage potential from this. But this is pretty tightly rotating right over US 176 right now. But in a little while, we should be able to say that if you're around US 176, you can resume any travel that you had this Sunday afternoon, which would be good. Looking further south, we still have some kinks in the velocity here that we will want to keep an eye on. There's a lot of very heavy rain. Again, you have a tropical system. We're in a very tropical air mass here in the southeast in the Carolinas. Abnormally so for this time of year. I'm in Charleston. Dew points are 75 earlier today, and I've been calling it Ogtober, and it certainly has felt that way, to be sure. So again, Jonesville right now, watching you very closely. I'm going to go north to Caldwell County, North Carolina. This has just exited the Burke County, just crossed the Burke Caldwell line. This is around Hudson. And this is near Sawmills. There's still some rotation here. Thank you to GSP or whoever there cleaned up the PRF there, so we can see a good clean velocity presentation. The strong rotation around Sawmills. Let me do a little drawing real quick to show you kind of what we're Up against here, this is wind going towards the radar in the green and wind going away from the radar in the red. And so roughly around here is where we think that there could be a possible tornado. This is very near Hudson. This is crossing U.S. Let me see if that's 321 alternate around Hudson and 321 as well. So this is going to roughly split between Lenoir and Hudson. Looks like we have a new tornado warning just issued. Hasn't come up on the screen yet, but I'm just seeing it in chat here. So a new tornado warning for Caldwell County. This will be eastern Caldwell County until 6:30. This tornado warning is for a confirmed tornado. This is going to be near Lenoir and Cedar Rock around 6:10 p.m. This also includes Patterson and Kings Creek, Yadkin Valley. Starting to see reports of damage come in from this tornado as well around Hudson. Damage reports in Connolly Springs. Tree damage is likely from this storm. So again, new tornado warning just came up on the screen here. We'll talk about this. This is so again, Lenoir. This is eastern Caldwell County. This is along US 321 and US 64. So this will be crossing US 64 in about 10 minutes. It's going to head towards Patterson and Kings Creek, Yadkin Valley. And again, locations to the north are going to want to keep an eye on this closely. If you're in Darby, Elkville, certainly something that you're going to want to watch as this storm continues to move to lift north. Has a history of causing damage, getting still a good-looking rotational signature from the radar as it crosses 321. So Cub Creek Circle, potential damage there being reported by spotters and fire department. And we are continuing.
I'm with you, Jared.
Cool. All right, James, got you there. So again, continuing to watch this storm in northern North Carolina. We have a severe thunderstorm warning in Polk County approaching Lake Lure. 60-mile-an-hour winds possible with that one. But again, we want to emphasize that this could start to take on a rotating characteristics. It showed some signs earlier as when it was in Greenville County, and need to watch it closely as it is possible that we could see some rotation spin up there. And we finally still around Jonesville, still a pretty tight rotational signature here to monitor closely as this storm lifts in Union County. And there may be a second area of rotation trying to get started around Buffalo. So again, we've had a couple of these cases where we've had storms following each other with these emitting these supercellular characteristics. And need to watch this closely, James.
Absolutely, Jared, and I was taking a look at some of those storm reports, and as you've been telling our folks who have been joining us on the live stream over the course of the last few hours or so, certainly watching some of these tornado warnings with some confirmed tornadoes and the debris signatures as well, too. And like you said, we're starting to get the on-the-ground reports, too, from people going out to survey. Also, what we're watching is the network of DOT cameras across the area. So here's a look at Interstate 85 southbound in Gaffney, not too far from where we're seeing some of the heaviest rain, not at this particular location right now, but we're going to be watching cameras like this to see if we can get some on-the-ground views of what folks may be running into. And Jared, I don't know about you, but looking at this, we have a lot of people right now out on the roadway, some of them possibly traveling if they do have tomorrow off for Columbus Day and a possible holiday weekend. But like you said, these outer bands of what is left of Nate, the tropical depression Nate, kind of swinging through the Carolinas here with us on this eastern side of the storm. And so if you are traveling, definitely do take that weather radio with you, so that if you're out and about, you don't unexpectedly run into a tornado. And Jared, I don't know if you are in a position right now where you can take your radar that we have up on the left side of the screen and maybe just push in a little bit, almost due center of your screen there towards Gaffney, South Carolina, where this camera is, because I think some of those polygons, some of those tornado warnings that we're watching will be sliding up to the north to intersect with Interstate 85 if they are continued over the course of the next few minutes. So we'll be watching this shot here to see if we get a little bit more in the way of severe weather over the course of the next few minutes. And this is right now impacting metropolitan areas, Spartanburg and Greenville. Certainly, if you're in the upstate South Carolina and into western North Carolina, into the mountains, we are watching, all of us right now, on alert. And I think if you're in the Charlotte metro area, you'll be watching for some of this to be rolling on through here in the course of the next hour or so. So we'll be keeping a close eye on that as well too. The other thing we're working on here, as you're watching our simulcast on Facebook Live, on Periscope, and on Twitter, is we'll be scrolling some other weather bulletins for you from time to time at the bottom of the screen, so that as we're zooming in and looking at particular cells, as Jared brings us back over to Lenoir and Sawmills, you can get an idea of what's happening elsewhere in the state as well too. So Jared, I'll pause for a second. I know you've moved your polygon back over here to take a look here at this tornado warning.
Yeah, and the one thing too, we just mentioned Gaffney, and that tornado warning was allowed to expire. So, and let me just check here. Well, nope, it was just reissued. So Cherokee and Union have just gone under another tornado warning. But so again, real quick, in Lenoir and Sawmills, Cedar Rock, still maybe not the best looking presentation you're ever going to see of velocity, but there is certainly that rotation, and that is crossing alternate 321 right now, crossing US 321, about to cross US 64. So nobody should be traveling around Hudson, Lenoir, Cedar Rock at this time. But now we do have the tornado warning has been reissued for a radar indicated tornado. So, and this includes Gaffney, and this is going to include that section of I-85 that you had up on the screen there. So we're going to want to keep an eye on that DOT camera very closely in the next little while. So again, I-85 roughly between I'm going to say Blacksburg and maybe east of Gaffney here. There's not a lot of stops on that stretch of 85, and also US 29 between Blacksburg, Gaffney, Thickety here too. Now under a tornado warning, and this tornado warning is going to go until 6:45. So new tornado warning. This is for Northern Union, and again, once again, we have there's your rotational signature. I'll put a little do a little drawing on it here, and this guy is still, maybe not the best looking rotational signature in the world, but it's still pretty tight. And this thing has got a history, my friends. It has been it's been producing some damage, and we've seen the tornado debris signature on it several times. So we got to watch this one closely. The NROT values are not particularly strong, but we haven't needed strong NROT values. And again, for those of you new to this broadcast, haven't been watching for the whole time, quickly what NROT is, it's a shortened term for normalized rotation. It's a special product we have with this radar software that helps us zoom in on the tightest areas of rotation. Typically, anything above 0.5 has got my eye on it, and anything above 1 is pretty significant, probably a warning on that one. And this one is 0.69, and we've had storms today, loft debris, with NROT values that are fair to middling. So certainly need to watch this very closely. We just went through, I'm in Charleston, we just went through a tornado outbreak with Irma, and several storms were, not those classic rotational signatures on radar, but still produced tornadoes and damage. And so we've got to be very, very careful of this. So again, if you're anywhere between Blacksburg, Gaffney, Thickety along US 29 or I-85, and James, I got to tell you, I think we may have another warning come out here shortly, just north of I-85 here. Looks like another area of rotation from an earlier storm seems to be getting its act back together. This storm came through Spartanburg and eastern Spartanburg County earlier with a tornado on the ground for a while, had lofted a lot of debris. And it looks like, once again now, we may see we could see another warning come out shortly. This is just north of I-85. This isn't warned right now, but it would not shock me to see this get another warning as it crosses the North Carolina state line.
And one of the things, Jared, as you're talking and taking us on this tour of upstate South Carolina, I'm picking the different DOT cameras that we have available to us to see if there is any particular camera right now that does give us additional insight to some of the things that you are describing. I haven't found one just yet, but certainly seeing the same volume of cars out there on the roadway. So we hope these folks are weather aware as they are traveling right now, because at any moment one of these areas of rotation could get its act together and pretty quickly and unexpectedly cross the interstate. So hopefully folks are tuned in on their car radios or even with that cell phone in a hands-free appliance so that they can kind of be weather aware as they are traveling right now. Jared, as we just passed 6 o'clock here, 6:05, I was wondering if we could just do a quick reset and then pull the radar on out as I try to reload our DOT camera and just see exactly how many tornado warnings we may be dealing with at this point.
Yeah, we've got two on the board right now. We've got one in Caldwell County, and I'm starting to see reports that tornado is confirmed now with the storm in Caldwell County. So, again, we're watching the storm pass into Cherokee County, getting very close to I-85. There may be a second area of rotation just north of I-85, and now in Caldwell County, North Carolina, just north of Hickory, Whitnell, Lenoir, crossing US 64. There could be a tornado on the ground here, and again, we have. We have a report from amateur radio operators suggesting a tornado on the ground moving towards from about 6 o'clock. So this is about 4 minutes ago. So there was certainly a possibility of a tornado on the ground having approached 321. Using the correlation coefficient product, we see this area of blue. I'll put a little drawing on it so y'all can see exactly what's what. And you can see this area right here is my main focus for potential tornado debris about to cross US 64 headed towards Cedar Rock. So anybody Cedar Rock, Kings Creek, Yadkin Valley, be on alert and get into tornado shelter as soon as you can.
Hey, Jared, I'm going to jump in for just a second because I do have a new DOT camera up, and what is catching my eye here, this is Interstate 85 back in upstate South Carolina. This is that Gaffney area. I've only had this camera up for about 30, 45 seconds or so, and I'm already beginning to notice this camera is shaking more and more with each passing moment. And so I don't know exactly, this is mile marker 93, give or take or so, so I'm not exactly sure where in that polygon we may be. But even if we don't catch a tornado literally crossing the interstate right here, I mean, we have a pretty intense thunderstorm, so we could be seeing elsewhere within that same storm some pretty damaging violent winds, and I think that's what we're seeing here with the shaking of this camera on the right side of our screen.
Yep, and I'm going to go get that up for you here in just a second. I'm going to make sure that I can get that. I'm going to pull up that mile marker route right now. Let me get that up there. Mile marker 83 is roughly near 93. 93. Yeah. So that's roughly near South Carolina State Road 11.
That's probably what we're actually seeing there. There is an overpass right in the center of this shot.
Yeah, more than likely. That'd be exit 92, so you're roughly near there. And and that would take you towards Gaffney. Let me see if I can't... I
think
Gaffney,
I'm going
to
try to leave this up here for a moment because it definitely some wicked weather rolling on through here.
Yeah, that's a good idea. We'll take a look at the velocities. And right now, that one area of transient rotation, I will note that we talked about a few minutes ago, north of I-85 and northwestern Cherokee appears to be on the downtrend again. So no warning, probably a good call there. But you see, this is, we may see a second, it looks like we've got a second circulation trying to take over here. And I've been seeing a good bit of this. So here's one area here, but it looks like this might be a second area trying to wrap up and get its act together. So again, anywhere in this warning, anywhere in western Cherokee County, certainly some major concern here. Jonesville, the danger's over for you in Jonesville. As far as imminent tornado threats, you're still in the polygon. I know GSP is working a lot of storms today, and they may not be trimming the polygons as fast. Completely understand. So what we're going to do is we're going to say Jonesville, it's all good. It's a little rainy right now, but nothing too scary for you. Where I'm worried about right now is James has shown, very south of Gaffney. And I got to tell you, I'm going to pull this no debris signature, but
I'm also noticing there's a car that's pulled off underneath the overpass, probably because what this camera's not showing us is the visibility problems. But we need to remind folks, underneath an overpass is not where you take shelter from a tornado.
No way. That'll just funnel it and make it worse.
And now we've got a second vehicle pulling off. And that actually appears to be a tow truck, so I'm not sure if those two things are related or we just have multiple people trying to take shelter from the weather here underneath this overpass. But that is absolutely, not the safest place to be. You're in a structure here that is not designed to protect you from a tornado. If it has any sort of structural problems, you have heavy concrete at the top. But also what's going to end up happening here is if a lot of folks pull off and try to seek shelter underneath a tornado, that is going to cause a problem for everyone else back behind you, because now the highway, the avenue of emergency support is just stopped and gridlocked. So hopefully these folks take care of whatever their issue may be here and they get on their way fairly shortly. It does seem like we may have a disabled vehicle and a tow truck working together, but also looking at the top part of that screen, it definitely seems like the visibility may be coming on down here. And on the left side of your screen, Jared Smith in our weather center in Charleston is showing you that polygon right now for this upstate South Carolina storm, which does include Interstate 85, that blue line that kind of comes on through. And so that area of circulation that he is circling right now is still a little ways away from the interstate. So I would only expect this shot on the right side of your screen to get more intense over the course of the next few minutes.
Yeah, and I'm telling you, it looks like the first circulation is starting to wind down. It looks like a second one is starting to take over a little further to the east. And so let me tweak some of my storm motion settings here. Do a little storm track here, and we get little tick marks. So these are not like the cool looking polygons that we got on TV, but they do the job, you know. But roughly every tick mark is 15 minutes. So in about 15 minutes or so in Gaffney, you have about 15 minutes left. And so in Gaffney, you've got a little bit of time, but you should be getting to shelter now. And I really hope that these people are not taking shelter under this overpass.
I hope so as well, too. Jared, I'm actually going to borrow your graphics here for a second because I can superimpose myself over it if you don't mind running the computers as well, too. So not only is Jared able to tellustrate for you, but right here is that area of circulation that has prompted this tornado warning. And we've been watching this area of rotation as well as a few associated areas of rotation. Jared mentioned a moment ago how this is kind of cycling, and that's pretty natural with storms like this, but we've had several areas of rotation just like this over the course of the last hour or so make their way through upstate South Carolina, where we do have reports of damage and tornadic activity. So I wouldn't be surprised to watch this area of rotation really kind of carry on up through Gaffney itself and up to Interstate 85, where we've been watching that DOT camera, which I will go ahead and pop back up on your screen, because even in that short time that I was talking, Jared, the visibility is already beginning to drop on down. So we will keep a close eye on this, but before we get too lost in what's happening here in upstate South Carolina, I may ask that we do slide the radar back on into North Carolina, because our friend Scotty Powell is telling us that via spotter reports, another wall cloud being spotted in southern Burke, Cleveland, and Lincoln County line area, where those tri-county areas do come on together. So not only do we have activity right now in the upstate of South Carolina, but we also have Scotty Powell and other folks working the storms that are making their way through western North Carolina. And so as Jared just slides just almost north of where that Gaffney activity is, we can see we do have a couple polygons from the National Weather Service. And Jared, I'll go ahead and superimpose myself back over your graphics if you don't mind me stealing them, and I can kind of point out that area of rotation for folks. As you had just a moment ago, you had there we go, you had reflectivity up, and so this right here is what we were watching for, and that's what has prompted a lot of these warnings to come on through. Jared, have you been watching this cell at all over the last few minutes? Is this one that we had debris signatures with the correlation coefficients?
We did, and and admittedly, we're starting to get pretty far from the radar here. The GSP radar is still kind of the closest game in town for this. Now, this is interesting. The wall cloud report now, where these three counties come together, there's still no formal warning, but I will say that when I go to my suite of rotation products, there's something kind of there. So we'll need to keep an eye on that. Certainly the danger is in eastern Caldwell County right now. A new tornado warning was issued now. This is a little further north now. This is in Wilkes County. This goes until 6:30. And
I may need to switch National Weather Service offices on my computer because I'm not sure I'm pulling all of these in as you're looking at them. Please carry on.
Yeah. And this one's coming out of Blacksburg now. So this one's coming out of Blacksburg, and I may switch to may pull a second source of radar up here shortly, James, to help get a better look at this. So again, they're continuing with the confirmed tornado warning. And I think that's reasonable. At this point, it's still hard to say. There could be a lot of depolarization of the beam. 7,700 feet up, this could be mixing, this could be hail. I'm using a different dual pole product called differential reflectivity, and this is telling me that maybe this may be more like maybe some wet hail mixing in versus debris at this point. But that being said, that's just the look from the GSP radar, and we're just we're a little bit in no man's land when it comes to radar from here, unfortunately.
So true.
So I almost may have a better shot with. I may have a decent shot with Morristown as well. So we'll try a couple different sources of radar. So what I'm going to do here is let me pan back out, and I'll say, and I'll tell you, we have this transient area of rotation. Let me put the storm relative velocity back on here. Tweak the storm motions as such, and I didn't want a marker. I wanted a track. The storm was again, going back to Gaffney for a minute, looks like this is really starting to get its act together. We're starting to see, and what I can do here is we have some really cool analysis tools with this software. And one of the things this does is show us strength probabilities, and it also shows us the wind shear and everything else. So again, we have about 63 knots of shear here. That's nothing to shake a stick at. And you could get a decent tornado spinning up really at any time. We go to the correlation coefficient product, and is this? That's still not quite where I would. No, they're not. The correlation coefficient is not correlated, so to speak. But I got to tell you, right here around Thickety, this is really starting to tighten up. And I got to tell you, I got to be really concerned now across 29 and I-85 there as we continue to watch that. We continue to watch that DOT tower cam. A lot of cars on the road, and we have that very unfortunate situation for that person with what looks to be a disabled vehicle underneath that overpass. And I got to tell you, that is very concerning. So what I'm going to do. James, if you can take DOT full for a second while I make some adjustments over here.
Yeah, please go right ahead, Jared, and I appreciate all that you've been doing for us. And folks watching tonight on Facebook and Periscope and YouTube, go ahead and in the comments section, go ahead and ask some of your comments, and Jared and I will try to take a look at that as we continue to look in at real-time information coming in from the National Weather Service, of our fellow panelists here at Carolina Weather Group and the National Weather Service. Matter of fact, Scotty Powell is up in the foothills of North Carolina. He's reporting structural damage. Fairwood Drive and Mount Herman Road in Caldwell County, where we've been watching an ongoing tornado warning there too. So we have a confirmed tornado on the ground and some structural damage coming in. We even have some ham radio operators. These are folks who may be in a stationary position or out in some vehicles driving around using analog radios to relay back information. We have a ham radio operator who is reporting a tractor trailer flipped over. This is in Hudson, North Carolina. This is a side street that I'm not recognizing. I apologize in the message that he has sent, but it is at an interchange with 321 there in Hudson, North Carolina. So not only are we watching for the tornadic activity itself, but we do have some pretty severe rain and wind events coming on through. Matter of fact, if you're watching, scrolling at the bottom of your screen, not only are we telling you about tornado warnings and flood warnings, but we even have some high wind warnings as you make your way back up, especially in those higher elevations. All of this associated with those outer bands of what is left of Nate, now a tropical depression. I think Jared has moved his radar on over to show us a little bit of what we're talking about here in western North Carolina.
Yep. So this is from Blacksburg. I'm using the Blacksburg radar right now. Again, like I mentioned earlier, we're kind of in no man's land for 88Ds. Wish we had one here. I really wish we had one here. But looking north of Lenoir, and this is going to get very close to North Wilkesboro. I'm going to zoom in here. So again, now the area of concern is going to shift north of 64. And now I'm looking at 421. So this is US 421. If you're taking a drive, thinking about a drive on US 421 between North Wilkesboro, Laxon over here in the foothills, something wicked this way comes. And you may want to reconsider those travel plans, as we have still some pretty well-pronounced rotation on the radar moving north and northeast. So right now, Yadkin Valley, again, this is a little bit of a lower res look right now. Once we get a little bit more away from the Greer site, there's still plenty going on there. We'll switch the high res look there, but Yadkin Valley, Cedar Rock, this is going to cross This is going to cross the Wilkes County line here in a matter of minutes, going towards US 421. And again, if you're in Mulberry, McGrady, Glendale Springs, I got to tell you, you're going to want to watch the progress of this one closely. This one has been producing tornadoes and damage now for a good little while. It achieved a warning just north of the North Carolina border, and it's been pretty consistently tornado warned now for the last hour plus. So it is still not the best look from Blacksburg. We're looking at 9,300 feet up. I'll switch to GSP. Still a little bit lower looking at the storm. Little hard to see, but still definitely some rotation going over very near Yadkin Valley at this point. Elkville, Darby, Maple Springs, certainly something to watch there. So very busy in the foothills today, and we are continuing to see a lot of reports come in to the Weather Service from our panelist Scotty. Does great work up in the foothills, and again, 5 homes damaged, Fairwood Drive and Mount Herman Road now, Caldwell County, according to Scotty. So certainly some tornado damage to be reckoned with, and this is a dangerous situation as this storm continues to head north and northeast in through the foothills, getting very close to Wilkesboro. Looks like it's going to miss Wilkesboro to your west, but you're going to want to watch this if you're in the town of Maple Springs, Darby, Elkville. So continuing to watch there. And again, going south towards Gaffney, this one right now, and let's play with the Gaffney storm a little bit, because this one is really tight. Go to base velocity here. That is a really healthy rotational signature right over US 29. And this is headed towards 85 at a matter of moments here. So US 85, or Interstate 85 rather. And this is
this is crucial looking at that polygon, and I'm sorry to cut you off, Jared, but that area of rotation is really on the left-hand side of that polygon. So that's a good reminder for folks that when you see a polygon go up, you need to really be alert, because it's not necessarily going to go down the straight center of that polygon.
No, that polygon is a best guess. And tornadoes can do interesting things. We've seen them do very interesting things over the years. They are not the most predictable things, and we have to respect that. We have to respect that danger there, as we have this is as tight as I've seen in a while now. Yeah. I guess the one bit of good, and I don't know if this is parallax error or what, but I don't know if this is just noise in the radar data. Yeah, that's noise. There's no debris signature, at least, and so that's a good thing. But I got to tell you, we're going to be watching I-85 very closely, because this is tight enough. This has got the it factor. And now I'm looking at the NROT values, and now we've gone over 1. So again, as we've been talking about, this normalized rotation value now over 1 unit, and that's when it really piques my interest. And so if there's going to be something developing, it could be developing right south of I-85.
Jared, I'm going to cut you off for 1 second. A housekeeping question. Are you able to zoom into 85 there and give me a mile marker and exit, and I can make sure we pull up the most appropriate camera to get us the best eye possible on the rotation?
And I do not think I have that loaded here, but what I can do is I can get Gmaps up. And
we'll give Jared a second to do that, and I can switch. But what you are looking at on the right-hand side of your screen is Interstate 85, South Carolina DOT camera. This is mile marker 93, so not too far from exit 92. And we're going to find out here in a second if we need to pick one of the other Gaffney cameras. While we do that, matter of housekeeping, hello to Greg and Terry watching us on Facebook Live. Greg is telling us he's out without power in Connolly Springs in Burke County. Not only is Greg without power in Burke County, but Duke Energy is telling us that about 3,300 of their customers there in Burke County are without power. Other hotspots include Cleveland County, about 1,200 there, and in South Carolina and Pickens County, about 1,400. We have scattered outages elsewhere as well, too, as these storms come rolling on through, and we'll be keeping an eye on them very fast. Terry, you guys are all good there along the coast in Charleston, South Carolina. You're far enough away from this area of rotation that is the remnants of Nate that we're now watching upstate South Carolina and western North Carolina. Jared, check back in with you.
I think that camera is pretty good, actually.
Okay, we'll hold this camera.
Yeah, hold that camera for now. It's all right. We have a new tornado warning,
and they shifted it.
Yeah, and they shifted it east. So, kind of as we expected, and that's rotational areas right now. So this includes downtown Gaffney at this point. And And so, the Peachoid, if you're out with Representative Underwood at the Peachoid, take cover now. This just crossed US 29. This is crossing I-85, and and so they've shifted the polygon east to take in Gaffney. There's certainly the potential for damage there. This is crossing I-85 right now, and again, if there's one bit of good news I can provide is that the radar is not showing us any sign that there's any debris on the ground. Yeah. But let's dispense with that and understand that this could pop anything out. I could say that, and 2 seconds later it could pop down a tornado and then begin lofting debris, and the radar might not see it until its next whirl around the ball. So,
and what I'm going to remind folks, and I do apologize, Jared is in Charleston, and I'm in Charlotte. There's a little bit of delay, so we do keep stepping on each other, and I'm sorry about that, Jared. But we look at these areas of rotation, and as Jared's been telling you about, we're coming out of these radar beams. They're several thousand feet up in the sky, and when he talks about the debris signature, that is literally debris on the ground that is being kicked up, and so we can get some sort of ground confirmation then that something is happening on the ground. The other way we can get confirmation of what's happening on the ground, of course, human beings, but also cameras. Right side of your screen, we're looking at Gaffney. This is Interstate 85. And Jared's got that rotation up on your screen for you, and we're going to watch to see what happens when the area of rotation where those bright greens and that dark red area come together when it crosses the interstate.
And it looks like with the latest scan now from the next ride out of Greenville Spartanburg, again, they've got it in a mode where we were getting new scans roughly every 60 to 90 seconds, which is
very
fantastic.
Quickly.
Way better than we've ever had from the 88D, which is great. So, again, it looks like this rotational area has just crossed I-85. Owing to parallax error, there could be a tornado still near I-85. Now, that being said, I'm looking at this DOT camera that we have up around exit 92. Don't really see much out of the ordinary. People driving around, the phones probably blew up. But I will note that this tornado warning shifted west and has taken in Boiling Springs, Cliffside, Ellenboro, alternate 221, Highway 74. Again, they're now warning for the possibility for this tornado to cross. If there is a tornado here, it could cross the North Carolina, South Carolina border. And this would be into Cleveland County and into Rutherford County. So again, we've got a busy situation right now. As this crosses I-85, and once again, this could be another situation coming up shortly for Rutherford and Cleveland counties in North Carolina. So Mooresboro, Lattimore, Boiling Springs, Cliffside, Ellenboro, Caroline. Again, now's the time to start getting ready to get into that tornado shelter. What is good tornado shelter? Lowest level of your home, interior room, closet, bathroom. Bathrooms are great. They have this little roll. The plumbing can act like a roll cage. And that is, and that can be very helpful. These are not EF4, EF5 monsters, but every tornado is dangerous. A weak tornado can lift your roof off. You don't need an EF5 to cause damage. And also keep in mind that with these landfalling tropical systems, these tornadoes can spin up and spin down very fast. So if you're put under a warning, don't look for it. Don't go outside. Just take that action to protect yourself. Hang out. We'll let you know when it's all good. Now, in the tradition of letting you know when it's all good, this is now lifting pretty well northwest of Gaffney. So Gaffney, I think you're in good shape. Thickety, you're in good shape. Cowpens, you're out of the warning. And this is now becoming an issue really approaching Cliffside, North Carolina, based on this current trajectory here. Looks like it's taking a little more of a westward tack than previous storms, which is... we'd previously seen them going a little more northeast. This one, as I animate this and my poor computer, which is virtualizing all this, looks like it is moving a little more northwest, which we haven't seen much of. We have not seen much of a northwest component of motion today, but here we are. So again, looking for debris, not really seeing much there. A lot of heavy rain. Again, if there is a tornado here, it's going to be rain wrapped. You're not going to see it. So again, best advice, just get to that lowest floor. Home or business, wait it out. We'll let you know when it's all good. But for now, we need to ride this out. Cliffside, Ellenboro, you're at the top of that tornado warning, and unless we forget, we still have the potential for a tornado as well in North Carolina. We're looking at Caldwell County. This is moving out of Caldwell County into Wilkes County. This is going to cross US 421 in a matter of time. In fact, we just got a new tornado warning up. So this is just east of Boone at this point. So tornado warning, Watauga, Ashe, and Wilkes County. Tornado warning is expired in Caldwell County, although it still looks like there's a little rotation there from the Blacksburg radar. We'll go back to the Greer radar, and the
Jared,
software is... Yeah.
I'm sorry. Can you see what I have up on my screen? We actually have a picture that Scotty Powell, our fellow panelist, sent out not too long ago. This is from Jessica Long, Southeast Burke County. And this, I believe, may be the tornado itself. Going back just a few more minutes, you can actually see there in the clouds that lowering. Now, it's hard to tell, and we always say this anytime we're looking at something on social media, that is kind of a far out in the distance. So it's really hard to tell whether that extends all the way down to the ground or not. But either way, certainly something alarming and something to look at here as we're in this live real-time environment. This very well could be the tornado, the rotation itself, that has been prompting those tornado warnings there in the foothills that we've been telling you about.
Yep. So again, I think, I look at that and it's like, if there isn't any better reason to take it seriously, there's your visual cue, there's your visual evidence. It is at least a funnel cloud. Mm-hmm. And for those of you who look for visual evidence before you do anything, that's there it is. So
if you've ever taken the Skywarn spotter class from the National Weather Service, that right there is probably something you would call in.
Yep, absolutely, no doubt, and they are certainly very active today. The Skywarn groups in the foothills are very active today, even in Charlotte.
Yeah, which is fantastic. We need those people, especially when you think about our lack and our trouble with radar coverage here. It's those eyes on the ground that are crucial.
What I'm going to do is I'm going to switch to the terminal Doppler out of Charlotte.
Actually, if you can hold that wide view for just a second, Jared. If you can hold that wide view, I'm going to just do a very quick 101 on what we are talking about here when we talk about the radar problems. I'm going to superimpose myself over your map because if you're here in Charlotte, where I am, you have radar in Greenville, Spartanburg. You have radar in Blacksburg, Virginia, up towards Roanoke. You have radar out in Raleigh, and you have radar out in Columbia. What happens is, this is the curvature of the Earth. Here's the radar. The beam comes out, and it ends up getting further and further away from the surface because the Earth curves away from it. So what ends up happening is, when you're out in, essentially, this neck of the woods here, you are the furthest distance from the radar. We can still see stuff, but because that beam is so far away, we're looking at 10,000 feet above the ground. We're looking where airplanes are flying, essentially, low-flying aircraft. So we're not necessarily able to see what's on the ground unless we get pictures like the one that Jessica Long passed along via Scotty Powell. And so that's why Jared is bouncing around between these radar sites to compare and contrast. And we do have that terminal radar that Jared has put up on the screen right now is essentially, for all intents and purposes, a low-power aviation specialty radar here in Charlotte because of the international airport. Helps us fill the gap a little bit, but doesn't quite do the job that those full-power radar does. Jared, sorry for the interruption. Floor is all yours.
It's a fantastic interruption because it's a fantastic illustration of the problem. So a couple things. This may be a new rotation trying to get started around Caroline. Notice this on the TCLT radar. This is near 221. This is north of the original tornado warned storm that's crossed 85, is about to cross the state line. So one area to watch here. Here is, and again, the data can be noisy. I will say that the data can be very noisy here. You get a lot of attenuation. The reflectivity at this range is pretty much useless, but certainly something to keep an eye on south of Forest City, near Caroline, near Ellenboro. There's a Business 74. There's a US 74. This is about to cross there. Weather Service is watching it. They're not going to pull the trigger just yet. And so we need to keep a pretty close eye on this in Rutherford County right now. Also, let me go back to the Greer radar. And once again, this is an illustration of the problem. It's really getting noisy here, but we still have some signs of a rotational couplet around Darby. This is headed towards Maple Springs, Summit, Wilbar, Idlewild, Othello, Glendale Springs over the next 30 minutes. And again, we're going to need folks to, this is a tornado warning, Wilkes County, Watauga County, Ashe County until 7 p.m. This tornado has done damage. You've seen a picture of it. Thank you, Scotty. And thank you to everybody who's sending in reports. Now, moving south back towards north of Gaffney here. Still have a pretty decent rotational signature showing up on radar, about to cross the South Carolina-North Carolina state line. This is headed towards Cliffside. This is going to come in right around where Greenville County and Rutherford County and Cleveland County meet. So if you're anywhere in that little terminus there, that is where your greatest risk of severe weather is going to be. Let's take a quick look at the correlation coefficient again. I'm not seeing any signs of any debris being lofted, which is a good sign. NROT values still about a little shy of a little north of 0.5 units. So still something spinning there, something to watch. Here's a look from the GSP radar of what looks to be a little bit of rotation trying to show up over US 74. We'll tilt up a little bit and take a look. Probably not too much to that there, but certainly bears watching as it moves to the northwest. So let me zoom out a bit more. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to just take a quick reset. And let me get just get a couple things up. So it's a little past 6:30. This is the Carolina Weather Group. Jared Smith, James Brierton, with you streaming live. Tornado coverage for the upstate of South Carolina into the foothills of North Carolina. Very busy day. We've had reports of tornadoes through Laurens up into eastern Spartanburg County and Pickens, South Carolina, and now reports of damage coming in around Burke County and Lenoir in North Carolina from a confirmed tornado there. And we still have 3 active tornado warnings on the board. One in North Carolina, one entirely in North Carolina. This is for Wilkes County and Catawba, and let me make sure I got Ashe County until 7 p.m. So this is the one that's most recently done damage. You can still see we're a little far from the radar site, but there's still pretty good evidence of a tornado showing up on the radar here around 9,100 feet up. So there's your winds going towards the GSP radar and winds going away from the GSP radar. So that's what we look for when we're looking for tornadic cyclones. And certainly that fits the bill. Switching to correlation coefficient at this height from the radar, it's going to be much harder for us to tell if there's anything still down. This is moving north towards Maple Springs and Summit and Deep Gap. This is going to cross US 421. So anywhere between Deep Gap and I'd say Buck along US 421. Recommend nobody be traveling there for now. If you are on 421 between those areas, my advice is to pull off, find somewhere with sturdy structure, get into that sturdy structure, wait it out. All right, so that's one. We have 2 additional warnings going. I have a feeling this warning for Gaffney is going to be let go shortly. I think they're just going to let this one expire. This one goes until 6:45 or a few minutes shy of that. I'm not worried so much about this warning for Gaffney anymore. As far as Gaffney concerns, you're in good shape. Now very concerned for areas along the North Carolina-South Carolina border, roughly at the Greenville County and Cleveland County, as we have an area of rotation, albeit weak, not producing any damage that we can see, which is a good thing. But still, there could be something trying to get started here as it crosses into North Carolina. So Cliffside, Boiling Springs, again, the advice is the same. We need everybody in the tornado shelter everybody in that tornado shelter, lowest level of your home or business, interior room, hallway, closet, bathroom, good places to be. Ride it out until you get that all clear from the National Weather Service, your local media. As these storms are moving northwest a little bit, around 30 miles an hour. They've been known to spin down and spin up tornadoes, and it's certainly not good. A lot of reports from Burke County, Cub Creek Circle, apparently 5 homes damaged there. And just a bad situation. The Weather Service surveys are going to be certainly interesting, James, as we continue to watch. The remnants of Tropical Storm Hurricane Nate, as they move through the southeast and along the periphery of that, you get enough wind shear to help kick up tornadoes, and we certainly have had no shortage of those today.
That's right, and I've moved our eye on the sky cam, if you will, changed locations. This is from resortcams.com now. We are in Jefferson, North Carolina. I admit it is struggling to buffer. I don't know if that is an effect of my computer or just a little bit of power outages combined with internet connectivity as these storms roll on through. You can see the camera here sliding around and moving around just a little bit. So this is in Jefferson, North Carolina. This is that tornado warning right now that we do have in effect for areas north of Lenore. So this includes Ash, Watauga, and Wilkes. We have an observed tornado on the ground, also watching with the possibility of hail this morning, going another 20 minutes or so until about 7 p.m. Eastern time. Not sure how close it specifically is to this camera location, but to get an idea of what we're looking at, I wanted to bring up that resortcams.com camera as Jared has also moved his radar there back into the western North Carolina mountains. We'll be watching for this, and I'm taking a look. I think right now the heaviest of the storm, the rain, and the rotation itself, not quite to this camera location just yet, but we'll be watching for it here as it continues to slide to the north. We do have those two areas right now under tornado warnings. This one here in the mountains and also that earlier one we were talking about just to the north of Gaffney, South Carolina, now crossing into portions of Cleveland County. So we're going to keep an eye on these. I think Jared may be stepping away in just a moment. He's been with you here on the Carolina Weather Group live streams on Facebook, Twitter, and Periscope for the course of the last 2 hours or so. So Jared, thank you so much, and I'm not sure if he's still with us or not. I will be stepping away momentarily.
Yep, I'm going to be here another. I'm going to be here through the. Let's stay here another about 5 or 10 minutes or so,
okay.
And then we'll let you jump in with your radar, James. But wanted to emphasize to everybody that tropical systems, they can spin up tornadoes at a moment's notice, and so we need everybody in these tornado warnings to be taking them very seriously. Just because you can't see a tornado doesn't mean they're not there. And if you can see a tornado, look out. We need people to be very, very careful of being able to hear these warnings and understand that these things can spin up at a moment's notice. So before I take off, I want to take a couple look at some trouble spot areas. Now, some of these same areas, Connolly Springs got hit with something, and there is another area of strong winds coming through there right now with another thunderstorm, and maybe a little rotation. Nothing really terribly concerning that. I'll switch to the normalized rotation product. Yeah, it doesn't look very formidable, but I will say that that's going to hamper recovery and rescue efforts there if needed. As this is going to train right over where the tornado touched down around Hudson. So again, a very precarious situation, not completely out of the woods yet there. Again, as James was mentioning, we still have a tornado warning up until about 7 p.m. And this for Deep Gap, Glendale Springs, Wilbar, Jefferson, which we're looking at on the camera, which we have up on the camera that has unfortunately been buffering a little bit, but that's not anybody's fault. But and I will say, we go further south here. There's not a lot of warnings here, but you see a lot of kinks in this rotation. And so, James, one thing that we're gonna need to keep an eye on here is that we still have little kinks in the winds here. A lot of wind shear still aloft, particularly south of Lawrence. This is an interesting one. Let me zoom in on this one real quick. This might be developing. I'm going to go south of Lawrence near Clinton, and this is again very near where we had another tornado. It's the same spot, and I got to tell you, look at these NROT values. We got an NROT value over 1. It would not shock me to see something get issued here shortly by the National Weather Service in Greenville, because this is crossing US 76. I say if you're in Clinton, I don't like the look of this. This might be something trying to spin up very quickly. So if you're in Clinton, take those tornado precautions. I'm not necessarily saying there's anything there, but I'm not saying there's not something there either. This is spinning up real fast. And so we need to, anywhere on US 76 between Lawrence and Clinton right now, we may have something trying to get started. No debris on radar yet, but I got to tell you, that might be rain wrapped and nasty. So there's still some evidence of the inflow getting in there and maybe some brief rotation spinning up. This could drop something. I look at these NROT values, and generally, if it's been over 1, we've had some trouble. And so anything over 1 is significant and bears close watching, and that certainly goes today. So watching Clinton very closely. And again, as we go back to the velocity view, we still have a tornado warning north of Gaffney. Cliffside, Boiling Springs, we still have some subtle rotation on radar here. This is being maintained out of the path of least regret, out of, as James Spann would say.
Yeah, I think they just let that one maybe expire, or they expired it for Cherokee. So we were, there it goes, right there. The polygon shortening up here as that rotation does move into North Carolina.
So Cherokee County, you're good for now. The National Weather Service in Greenville has trimmed off the box, reboxed it for Cliffside, Boiling Springs, Mooresboro, Lattimore, Ellenboro, Caroline. This is roughly straddling. This is getting very close to the Rutherford and Cleveland county line. This is going to cross US 74, US 74 business as it moves north and east. This is very close to alternate US 221 as well. Go back to the radar again. If there's anything there, it's going to be rain wrapped. You're not going to be able to see it. So if you're in this warning area, you need to be taking shelter, and you need to be ready to get into that tornado shelter in a moment's notice. And let's go back to this. It looks like it just sheared up and went right back down. You can see that had that brief little spike there and just collapsed with the next scan. So
gonna get a lot of that.
We have definitely had a lot of that today, and that's, that is pretty common. Eastern Union County. This one is also starting to show some signs. This is north of Carlisle and south of Lockhart and Monarch Mills. I've been battling a little bit of a cold, so pronunciation has been fascinating.
And pronunciation we've been going about 2 hours here talking with everyone online. So
I am going to hand this off to James in a second, but I will say we just went through this with Irma in Charleston, and we had National Weather Service in Charleston. They're a great group of guys. We had 4 confirmed tornadoes in Charleston. 3 of them lasted for less than 2 minutes and were not warned. Only one of them was warned. And so, again, I got to tell you, if these Weather Service meteorologists, they're doing their absolute best. And the radars are great. We're getting data faster than ever, but it's still not perfect. And so, again, if you feel, if you start to feel some of these storms getting close to you, and we see some of these signs of rotation on here, and we call you out, just do the safe thing and get to shelter, because at least be inside and be ready for that warning, because you just don't know. It can spin up and spin down just as quickly. We had one that had a path length of less than a tenth of a mile during Irma, to give you a general idea, but it still did plenty of damage. So that is what I'm going to leave everybody with. One last look. Again, getting really noisy here at this point from the GSP radar. What I'm going to do, I'm going to switch quickly to Blacksburg to get one last look at this Wilkes County tornado. And it just updated here. Looks like if the rotational signature is right over US 421, kind of at the corner of Ashe, Watauga, and Wilkes counties. So roughly over US 421. So again, we're going to keep an eye on the webcams out of Jefferson. This looks like this might go just east of Jefferson, but we'll keep an eye on that regardless. Jefferson would be in the rainy part of the storm. Again, slightly lower resolution radar look, but you can still see very good. I mean, this is a pretty decent looking supercell, especially looking 7,300 feet up into the storm. Pretty decent structure with this. So we've got to respect that. It's done damage, and we've got to be very, very cognizant of that. And again, we have another tornado warning ongoing. Still some several areas of rotation to be seen. Another tornado warning for Boiling Springs and Cliffside and Ellenboro for the next few minutes. And it looks like South Carolina right now, you are clear of tornado warnings in South Carolina. These tornado markings are on the radar screen that I have here, are damage reports, preliminary local storm reports into the National Weather Service. But again, I would be watching, James, as I prepare to hand it off to you, I'd be watching areas in Eastern Union County, Eastern Lawrence County, around where I-26 and 385 split. Some very strong winds there. I wouldn't be surprised to see that at least get a severe thunderstorm warning at some point. Around Clinton, just crossed US 76. So certainly some wind damage potential there. This looks a little bit more linear now, but you can never rule out a few spin ups along the line. And again, with a discrete storm in Eastern Union County. So, James, I think we're going to leave you with that. And hopefully this will get to quiet down sooner rather than later.
Hopefully so, Jared. Appreciate your time with us this evening. Jared Smith, panelist here at the Carolina Weather Group from Charleston, South Carolina. Jared, I will take the baton and attempt to run with it as well as you were, but I'm not sure I'll be able to do justice. So thank you for all of your knowledge of the Carolinas as we continue to roll on here. We do have these 2 warnings that will go ahead and pop back up on your screen. Both of them right now going until about the 7 o'clock Eastern hour, so about another 10 minutes or so. We'll wait to see if those get continued or not. Matter of fact, that one there at the top of your screen as it makes its way towards the Virginia line, we are receiving an update from the National Weather Service telling us that they are beginning to see a little weakening with that rotation. As Jared was talking about a few minutes ago, we kind of see them spin up, then they kind of slow down a little bit. So we'll wait to see if in the next 8 minutes, as that warning does expire, whether or not they do choose to continue that or not. But you can see right now this is between Boone and North Wilkinson, making its way there towards Jefferson, where we were watching that eye in the sky from resortcams.com to see what type of effects we may be having in that area not too long. Elsewhere, we still had that one warning, that one if you've been watching us, that did make its way through Gaffney, South Carolina not too long ago. That one also going to the 7 o'clock hour now for Cleveland and Rutherford counties, North Carolina. I want to zoom in here my radar scope and take a look at some of these other areas of rotation that we're watching with inside these embedded thunderstorms, all associated with the remnants of Tropical Depression Nate as he now makes his way across the mid-Atlantic and towards the northeast after making landfall last night as a Category 1 hurricane. We do have a lot of noise in the radar, as Jared was telling you about, so looking to see the best source here. I want to switch back over to our Greenberg-Spartanburg radar, and you can see exactly that was one of the areas that I think Jared was concerned about just before he signed off here. I'll go ahead and circle it as well, too. A little bit of rotation there just outside of Union, making its way eventually here towards Lockhart in the next few minutes or so. So we'll wait to see if that gets a warning as well too. These areas of rotation is where you see the greens and the reds come together, especially where you get a little bit of highlighting there. We'll watch for some of those. That one there embedded in some other thunderstorms as well too. So we'll wait to see exactly what does become of that. But again, you are watching live streaming coverage here of severe weather all associated with Tropical Depression Nate. Watching here on the Carolina Weather Group Facebook, Periscope, and Twitter. So thank you so much for all those who have been joining us and watching us online too. We're going to try to give you a county level view of some of the things that are happening in western North Carolina and upstate South Carolina. Of course, when it comes down to your safety, we always tell you trust the officials in your community emergency managers, your local broadcasters, as we continue to keep an eye here from our view of watching the entire region. Also getting some additional information in from our friend Scotty Powell, a panelist you've seen many times here on the Carolina Weather Group, reading his messages off to the side of the screen here. Some buildings damaged along Woodlawn Drive in Connolly Springs. That's another report we're hearing from Connolly Springs. We also had a viewer on Facebook Live from Connolly Springs not too long ago reporting power outages. So Scotty Powell in his capacity reporting in some damage there in Connolly Springs in eastern Burke County. Also multiple power lines snapped. Highway 182 and Charlie Randall Road near Lawndale in Cleveland County. So we'll be watching some of those information and storm reports as these storms come on through. Folks are able to relay in that information as they're getting it. Also at the bottom of your screen, we're watching warnings right now for the entire area. These are tornado warnings, severe thunderstorm warnings, flood warnings, and even high wind warnings associated with the rotation that is that low pressure of Depression Nate as he comes on through. Especially in those higher elevations, we can expect to see some damaging wind gusts. May not even be associated with a tornado, but just as this weather does come rolling on through. So we're still waiting to see whether or not the National Weather Service in Greenville, Spartanburg is going to go ahead and renew this warning here for Cleveland County and Rutherford. It does expire at 7 o'clock in the next few minutes. We'll wait to see whether or not they choose to renew it, and one of the things that they will use to decide that is they will look at radar here and try to see whether or not this area right here really begins to formalize a rotation again. We're seeing a little bit right now, not the strongest signature on radar. The other one that is expiring at the top of the hour is one that is being handled by the National Weather Service in Blacksburg, Virginia. They do our northern North Carolina counties here, especially as you make your way into the mountains. So we'll wait to see here if this one gets its act back together as well too. And matter of fact, when you see those purples like that on the screen, that's really some bad data coming in. So we're having a hard time seeing it on the right side of your screen. That is the velocity. That is how we watch for the rain inside, the winds inside these thunderstorms. But on the left side of your screen, as I attempt to superimpose myself back over this image, this is traditional radar here. So this blob right here doesn't really represent a traditional tornado inside of thunderstorms. So that's some good news. As the Weather Service was noting, we may be seeing some weakening, and especially since we're not getting a lot of convincing data over on the velocity as well too. But we are watching the resortcams.com camera in Jefferson, North Carolina. It is clearly cloudy and overcast and raining right now, so we'll watch to see how the weather changes. And not only are we getting these spin-up tornadoes and deep convective thunderstorms across a lot of western North Carolina and upstate South Carolina, but what's really fueling this is all of that really tropical moist air that we've all been feeling today. It's been fairly gross outside, and that's really giving a lot of fuel to the atmosphere for some of these spin-ups. But as the sun goes down, some of that will reside, and so that will kind of back things off a little bit. But as we go in through the evening hours, it's always good to have that battery-operated weather radio on standby, because you never know when we might get one of these spin-ups here. We still do have a tropical system moving on through, which is kind of bringing its own power supply, if you will. So that's why we kind of all want to be weather aware as we go on through the evening. One of the ways you can do that, of course, is by going to our website, CarolinaWeatherGroup.com, and downloading the Stormwatch Plus app. It's an app you can put on your phone, but it will only alert you if you're inside one of those polygons that we were looking at a little bit earlier on. So that's one of the ways that you can not only stay weather aware, it's also a way you can support us here at the Carolina Weather Group by downloading that app and putting in the referral code Carolina. All right, so we do have an update from the National Weather Service. They've actually let one of those tornado warnings expire, so let me go ahead and pop this back up on the screen for you. You can see where the screen thinks it is, but the polygon itself has actually been dropped. So this was that Rutherford County, Cleveland County one, and see if I can get that to go away, because that polygon, that red polygon, is no longer there. We really can't see anywhere on that screen where any of that rotation used to be, but you'll remember it kind of came right up on in through here, but that has now been allowed to expire because we're not seeing any of that rotation on the right-hand side of your screen. We're really left just with this one warning that the National Weather Service tells us they are probably most likely going to allow to expire in the next 2 minutes or so. If that does happen, what we're going to do is we're going to take a time out here in the Carolina Weather Group. I'm going to step away, get a glass of water of myself. We will continue to monitor these storms with the information that's scrolling at the bottom of your screen. We'll also have a radar up on the screen that is watching the Carolinas in case anything does pop up. We're able to bring it to you because we will be watching, associated with this tropical system coming on through, a decent amount of rain. Let me go ahead and show you our North Carolina and South Carolina radar. It's still showing both of those tornado warnings there as red polygons, but you can see just the rain mass across western North Carolina and even down through upstate North Carolina, South Carolina into the Sandhills and back down through Columbia as well too. One of the other things I'm looking at here off to the right side of my screen is the National Weather Service chat. It allows us to get information in from the National Weather Service, from those meteorologists on staff, also storm spotters and emergency management officials. Our friend Scotty Powell has been relaying some information from his neck of the woods in western North Carolina as well too. So we're beginning to get now some of these storm reports and these damages of things that may have been damaged either by possible tornadoes or by wind associated with some of these severe thunderstorms and just the low pressure itself as it makes its way on through. So I wouldn't be surprised as you go on through the evening hours. We will have folks who will be without power this evening as power lines have come on down, and it's going to take those crews a little while to get out there and make repairs safely in the dark as more rain is continuing. So it's never a bad idea. Have some batteries on standby. We got a battery here and a flashlight as as well too. So as you kind of maybe are preparing for what's yet to come later on this evening, you can always have that on standby. It's always, good to have. What's the worst case scenario? You don't use it? No harm, no foul. So we'll be watching for some of that as we go on through the evening hours. Matter of fact, we are getting confirmation as I put the radar back up on the screen that the National Weather Service in Blacksburg, Virginia, that monitors our North Carolina counties, have allowed that warning to expire. So right now we have no active tornado warnings in North Carolina or South Carolina. 7 o'clock Eastern hour, James Brierton with you here on the Carolina Weather Group. It is October the 8th, 2017. Tropical Depression Nate making his way on through the region. Jared Smith with you for much of our coverage this early evening hours. I'm going to step away for a few minutes. We're going to go ahead and put our Carolina radar up on the screen for you. We're going to continue to keep an eye on these things. Please stay safe, weather aware, and we'll bring you updates as news warrants right here on the Carolina Weather Group. Thanks so much for following us online and on social media.